In this video from Velixo, we'll look at how to create a custom drill down feature for our general ledger reports in Excel. Velixo includes a drill down feature that provides the ability to obtain more detailed data about GL balances that are included in our report. To access this, we can select a value in our report and then click Drill Down on the Velixo ribbon. The created worksheet displays all the summary data which is used to calculate that original balance. If we want even more detailed information, we can click on the View Transactions link for any of the summary items. This takes us directly to the Account Details screen in our ERP, and from there we can even view the individual transactions on a batch-by-batch basis. This is a great feature. There are times, however, when it might be convenient to view the full list of transactions at one time and to do so within Excel. Let's explore how we can do that. First, we're going to need a specific generic inquiry that has been created to retrieve transactional data from the ERP. We can get this inquiry from the Velixo Online Help Center. We'll go to the example reports and then to the example for listing general ledger transactions. From here, we'll download the generic inquiry used by this sample report. Here you can see that we've imported the Velixo GL detail inquiry into our ERP. We'll need to remember that name for later. When we view the results, we see details about all the transactions within our general ledger module. Obviously, we don't want to bring all our GL transactions into an Excel report. That would not be efficient. Rather, what we want to do is set up a worksheet in Excel that allows us to display specific data from this inquiry. You can see here that we have created a worksheet that allows us to specify one or more branches, accounts, sub-accounts, and a range of financial periods for the transactions we want to see. To help us as we go along, each of the cells where we will place this information has been given a name that we can use. Let's put in some sample information and configure a filter that we can use to get data from our generic inquiry. Let's put in a couple of GL accounts, and let's use a single financial period, so we'll put the same period for both ends of our range. For now, we won't bother with a sub-account so that we can see all the transactions for the accounts we entered. Now, let's use the Velixo GI filter function to define the filter we will use for retrieving the data. The first parameter of the GI filter function is the name of the connection to our data, in this case, demo. Next, we provide the name of the generic inquiry we want to use. This is why it was important that we know the name. All the rest of the parameters for the GI filter function are what field do we want to filter by, and what criteria do we want to apply to that field. So field criteria, etc., etc. First, we'll set that we only want data from the ERP's actual ledger. Next, we'll filter on branch and use the information in cell C3. If there's data in the cell, we'll use that. Otherwise, we'll use the asterisk to represent all branches. Next, we'll add the accounts we want. In this case, we'll use another Velixo function, the expand account range function, and use the data in cell C5 to list just the accounts we want. Next comes sub-account. We'll use a combination of the techniques we used for branch and account, using the asterisk to represent all sub-accounts or expanding the sub-accounts that are listed. Finally, let's add the financial periods. In order to specify a range of financial periods, we'll place the greater than or equal sign in front of our first period. Note that we also have to remove the dash that typically is shown between the period and the year. The dash isn't included in the data that comes from the inquiry. We'll then use a similar technique for adding a filter for the ending period, using less than or equal to. Now that we've specified all the filters we need, we'll click OK. And we have a filter that is ready to be passed to the generic inquiry. You can see that the filter includes all the values that we specified. Since we didn't include any criteria for the branch or sub-account, those are left out. Now it's time to pass our filter to the generic inquiry and get back the desired data. Let's start by adding a header which includes easily readable names. Now we'll use the Velixo GI function to go get our data. The GI function includes just 5 parameters. Just like with the previous function, the first parameter is the name of our connection, and the next line contains the name of the generic inquiry in our ERP. The third line is a reference to the filter that we just placed in cell B8. In this way, when we make changes to the parameters we want, the filter will update automatically, and so will the information we pass to the generic inquiry. Next, we'll list out all the fields we want to show, and the order in which we want to show them. This list, separated by commas, matches the more user-friendly header we just included in our report. Finally, since we have put our own header in our report, we do not want to include the header information that comes from the inquiry, so we'll set the last parameter to false. Now we can click OK, and the data for the transactions we have asked for is displayed. If we make changes to our worksheet, the filter updates and new data is retrieved from the generic inquiry. Now let's go back and look at our report again. Let's suppose that we want to see the transactional data for this 115,000 value. If we expand the behind-the-scenes areas, we see the highlighted branch, account, and period information used to retrieve this value. Let's just manually plug that information into our newly created GL detail sheet. We'll put in the same branch, and then the account. The dates are already the same. And there we see the underlying data on which that 115,000 value is based. What we want to do now is create the ability to do this without having to manually type the information on this sheet. So, our next step is to create a simple Excel macro to copy the information from our report to this GL detail sheet. If we navigate to Excel's Visual Basic Editor, here we see a basic macro that does exactly that. It takes the information from our report based on the specific line and column of the value we select and places it in the appropriate cells in our GL detail sheet. You can see that the macro uses the names we assigned to those cells. The macro then displays the detail sheet. Now that we have our macro, let's make it easy to use. Going back to our report, you can see that we've placed a button on the worksheet. Now we can assign our macro to that button. Now we can select a value in our report, click the View GL Detail button, and we're automatically taken to our GL Detail worksheet, where the correct values have been placed in the parameter cells and the transactional data has been retrieved from the generic inquiry. If we go back to our report, select a different value and click the button again, we now see the new details. Using this method, we can perform a drill down directly within Excel. There's no need to switch to our ERP. In addition, we have full control over what data is displayed. It is very easy to modify the select parameter of the GI function to display any or all of the columns which are already in the generic inquiry. Or if we want, we can modify the generic inquiry to return additional columns. In this way, our new drill down capability is fully customizable. This completes this video on creating a custom drill down feature in Excel with Velixo. We hope you found this information useful and look forward to seeing you in other videos from us. Until then, happy reporting.